Hey everybody, welcome to the Think Twice Rocker Advice. I'm Elijah, your gracious host, coming to you live from a beach here in Southern California. And I've got a question for you, and this question is heavy on my heart. And I think if you'll listen through this episode, there may be some thoughts I share that will be timely and in season for you right now. This is the thought that is starting to change the way I answer it. And it's this question: who are you? You right now, just pause, you in your life, if you had to answer, who are you? What are some of the things that would pop up? For me, I said the answer to this is starting to shift. And if you ever heard me talk about this topic, this is not the same as what I've talked about before. I've talked before about seasons in our life that change the way that it prepares us for other seasons. And we have goals that are temporary that we think are the permanent thing. And so we will make these big proclamations saying, this is who I am. But in reality, seasons, failures, things we didn't foresee coming, change those things. But today I want to shift it a little bit just to who are you right now? Not where are you going, not what are your goals, just who are you right now? And one way that I've started to look at this for myself is to just answer with clarity about things that I just can't change. I don't have control over. One, the reason I'm out here on the beach doing the podcast is because I don't have control over the privacy that I have in my personal life right now. I'm in a season where I'm being of service, and I just don't have the ability nor the availability to be able to set up my studio and do my podcast episodes. And my podcast is something that I've been doing for years, and it's pretty important to me. And so we have to make decisions on where we are in life as to whether we stop and let go of some things that have been important to us, or we try to figure it out. And this right now, this is me figuring it out today. And thank God it is a beautiful thing that other people love to see. And what are the downfalls of me doing this? Well, the audio is not going to be very good because you're going to get background noise. But the good part of that is the background noise is something everyone likes to hear, and that's the waves of the ocean. So that's kind of one of the things that me personally, when I answer who am I still a podcaster? And when we look at those kind of things and we define who we are by what it is we do, I know sometimes it doesn't bring out the exact answer we're looking for, but I want to just take you back to a thought I had in my own life. The first answer I could ever give to who am I is when I was named. They gave me the name Elias Israel Tyndall. And I've told this story before that I didn't actually know my name was Elias. I always thought it was Elijah until my first day of school, and they called me by Elias. And I was like, I don't know who this kid is, but I'm thanking God right now there's someone finally with a name that is worse than mine. It wasn't. It was me. And I went home. Sorry, I'm getting choked up. I went home and I told my Nana, they called me something weird at school today. And she said, was it Elias? And I said, yeah. And she said, because that's your name, stupid. I didn't know it was my name, but they gave me a name. I'm going to ask you in your life, has someone given you an identity? What's your name? Now, I know all of us have a name, but treat it as something significant, that you exist on this earth having been brought here, not through your own power, not through your own will or desires. You have been brought here and chosen to be placed on this earth, and you've been given a name. And I don't know what your name is. If this were like the Old Testament Bible days, names back then would be, you are like Moses. That means you're the deliverer of the people. You are Elijah. You are God's chosen. Nope, you're Elias. You've been given a name. And when I ask you, who are you? I'm going to ask you this. Have you forgotten your name on this earth? What do I mean by that? The very first thing you're handed is a part of your identity. And are you in a season where you have possibly started to lose your identity? You feel like you're not even you anymore. You feel like you've gone through seasons that have stripped you so much of who you once were and who you were striving to become that you don't even have an identity anymore. Friend, have you started to forget who you are? Have you started to forget that you have a name on this earth? Now, for me, I had to relearn, and maybe you're in that position. Maybe someone called you something that wasn't accurate. I like to take those old school, you know, the women used to carry that, I'm sorry, I'm getting something caught in my throat. Coca-Cola did not take out an ad on this podcast episode, but I need to wash that down. I like to get those old school compact mirrors with the little makeup on the inside. And I used to like to ask someone who has that in the crowd. And some young lady would raise their hand, usually a woman-ish person, not a small young lady, but a full-grown woman, because they carry a purse around with that makeup. And I'd bring them to the stage and I'd say, look in that mirror and describe who it is you see. And they would say, that's me. And I'd say, well, describe some features so that way we know that you are looking at you. And she'd go, okay. And I'd say, what color hair do you have? And she'd say, brown. What color are your eyes? Hazel. What color is your mustache? No, it's just kidding. What color is your shirt? And I say that you're sure that what you're describing is you. This person that you see is you. And she, yes. And I say, okay, I'm going to do something. I'm going to thump you in the head. And I want you to tell me, does this hurt or not? And she'd brace herself, and I'd get my thumper ready, the old school thumper, and I would rear back, and right before I got to her head, I would switch it around, and clink, I'd thump the little mirror. And I'd say, now, did that hurt you? And she'd say, no, that didn't hurt me. Of course it didn't. And I'd say, but I just thumped you. And she'd say, no, you didn't. And I'd say, yes, I did. You just told everyone in this room that that was you. And so if that's not you, then who did I just thump? And eventually she would get to the part where she'd say, you just tapped and thumped the reflection of me. And I would say, okay, how much does this cost, this compact little mirror? And she'd say $15, $30. And I'd point out that in reality, this whole time, who she's been describing is only a $15 version of who God describes as a priceless masterpiece. And I believe that sometimes we will forget our identity. We have forgotten our name. We have forgotten that we were placed here and we've been called by name to be here on earth for such a time as this. Have you forgotten your identity? Because maybe it's just like me. You were placed here and you've always been called something else that wasn't really your true self. And maybe someone's come along and they've told you the $15 version of you. Maybe they've told you the insecure version, the not so smart version, the embarrassing version. Maybe they've told you different versions about yourself that doesn't really describe the true you. Because my name wasn't Elias, Elijah. It was Elias the whole time. Now those are both great names and they mean the same thing, but it's worth pointing out that someone could have been calling you something that stuck and you consider this of who you are. My middle name's Israel, and you would think, oh, that's like the country Israel. No, it was misspelled on my birth certificate. It's misspelled Isreal. It's supposed to be spelled Israel. Mine is spelled Elias Israel. It looks fake because it was misspelled on my birth certificate. Friend, as we go into these next few sessions on this podcast, the name of this whole thing is Think Twice. I want us to start rethinking some of the foundational things about the answers to who we really are, because it could be we have lost sight in this current season because of things that have happened in our life. Just on the way in here, I picked up this feather. I believe it to be a raven feather or a crow feather. It's walking right over there under the bridge downtown. And this feather represents something that has been shed because of one reason or the other. Now the bird, I suspect, that joker's still flying around somewhere. I don't think just because that crow has lost this about who he used to be, that it stopped his whole journey. I believe he's probably still going strong. I didn't see the rest of them anywhere. I didn't see a bunch of these laying about. I just saw one. And friend, it could be that you've gone through some storms that have started to strip you down of the things that you felt like you really brought to this earth. And you started to realize that it's been hurting over time, because this, I don't know how thick your hair follicles are, but that's a thick hair follicle, and it couldn't feel good coming out of there. But it didn't stop this thing's journey. Friend, there's some things that have been plucked out of your life for one reason or the other. There's some things that you've lost along the way that has lessened who you feel like you really are. And you feel more vulnerable because you have less feathers. That could be him back there. You don't feel like your true self anymore. And what I learned about flying, I used to fly a lot. What I learned about flying is that turbulence is not what takes down a flight. Turbulence doesn't stop you going from point A to point B. It just makes it uncomfortable on the journey. And some of you, some of us have gotten to a place in our journey where turbulence has made it very uncomfortable. But it's not going to stop the flight. It's not going to take you down. It doesn't change your identity. Today, choose to keep flying. And I just asked you with this last question that I asked right up front, what's your name? What do I mean by that? What's your identity? Who are you? I don't know how to answer that, Elijah. I'm in a place where I truly don't know how to answer that anymore. You asking the question alone is going to start bringing out things that will help reveal the answer of who you are. Not who you used to be, not who you were planning to be, but who you really are. I love you, my friends. Thanks for joining me on Think Twice, Rocker Advice. I'm Elijah. See you next time.